This is Talk is Sheep, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Society of BC, brought to you by Sitka Gear. Come along as we bring conversations that matter to you into the high alpine. This episode is sponsored by our conservation partner, Stone Glacier. Thank you, Sitka Gear and Stone Glacier, for investing in healthy wildlife and sustainable ecosystems.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk is Sheep. We got a very special guest today, also fellow podcasting host, and welcome to the podcast, Keith Balfourd, Director of Marketing and Communications at Wild Sheep Foundation. Great to see you, sir.
Great to see you, Kyle. I don't know about the very special part, but geez, that's awful nice of you.
It's good to connect, and I think it's been a while. I think you and I did one of these with Keith about 3 or 4 years ago, talking about the sheep show. It was the run up to sheep show, and we had Keith and yourself and Gray on, and a great discussion. I don't think we've done one-on-one, so it's great to get you on here.
Yeah, it has been a while. A lot of water over the dam since then, but
yeah, and a lot
of world of wild sheep conservation and podcasting and conventions. It all moves so quickly.
Certainly does, but like, man, I'll look at the foundation and what's gone on in this past 5 years. And don't get me wrong, before that too, but man, I know our new chairman, Charlie Kelly, talks about moving the needle, and then our previous chairman, he had, and I don't know if I should say it. Yeah, let's be honest, epic shit. So there's been some epic shit done over the last few years, and we've certainly moved the needle for wild sheep, in my opinion. And you've been right at the coalface on that. So appreciate all you're doing. So what's new in the world of Wild Sheep Foundation, Keith?
Well, what's new? It's never a dull moment. That is for sure. We joke around here about, post convention and moving into a summer lull where we just kind of put our feet up on our desk. Well, that's an internal joke. There's no such thing. Probably the biggest deal we've got going right now is we were fortunate to be able to step up and help the Arizona Game and Fish Commission raffle the very first Rocky Bighorn tag available as a raffle. And so we undertook that. We started this 1st of May. And so we're doing all the marketing, communications, and carrying the water to get this unique opportunity out to as many people as possible and let them know that, this is a raffle and you can certainly participate in it. So we've been, lifting on that quite a bit, and that's been very well received. Like I said, it was the first Bighorn, Rocky Bighorn tag. They have raffled, the Gaming Commission has raffled a desert tag before. And as most folks know, we typically have the auction tag at the sheep show. Auctions are a different animal than a raffle, obviously. So a lot of people excited about this. And we certainly are too. I mean, it's what we do. I read somewhere that we raise money for the Wild Sheep Resource, and this is another way to do that. And it's unique in the way because it's a raffle. A lot of folks can participate in this. Tickets are $50 a piece, and then there's a discount for volume buys. Auctions are certainly important. They typically raise the most money, but not everybody, as you know, can participate at that level in an auction. And so we're excited to be able to offer a raffle tag with everybody that can. If you live in a place where you live in a state or a province where online raffle laws make you eligible. There's some states that are excluded that you can't do that, but most states allow this.
Right on. So let's maybe just touch a little bit on this. So there's been some controversy over the last, it's been going on for some time, but it is sort of come to the forefront more recently Arizona stopped doing these auction permits and has gone exclusively to the raffle. And so let's talk a little bit about the business behind this. So obviously the foundations auctioned these raffles off, or the auctioned these hunts off very successfully, literally driving millions of dollars back into Arizona. So now it's gone to the raffle program. I know there's a lot of entities that do a lot of raffles, and we're not really known for that, the foundation. So maybe talk about how the foundation even applied or got the tag, the interest in it, and then, how does the application process work? How did we basically end up with it as opposed to, some of the other conservation orgs or other entities out there that might want to do this sort of thing?
Well, sure. Yeah. Just like anything else, there's history to these things. You mentioned we have been blessed as an organization to be the trusted source with the auction conservation permits, and have since the inception of those, which goes back to, I think it was 1980 or 1981, when the then governor of Wyoming realized that with so few sheep, therefore so few hunting permits available, that they just couldn't run an effective wild sheep conservation program without some infusion of additional funding. So he came up with this idea of, well, let's pull off a tag here and let's see if we can auction it and raise some additional money. And so that really started the beginning of what then was called the governor's tag. Wyoming was the first. They gave that to what was then FNAWS, Foundation for North American Wild Sheep, before we changed our name to Wild Sheep Foundation. And we auctioned that off at the Sheep Show convention. And I think that was, somewhere in the $25,000 range, which was a record at the time. It was the first one. And then other states looked at that and went, wow, that was more than we get from what few tags we have to sell. So other states and provinces started to follow suit and issuing a governor's tag, a minister's tag, a commissioner's tag. They all came by different names. And not only for sheep was the first, but as we all know, that's expanded into other conservation permits, which we call them now. It's more befitting of the name because they're not all governor's tags. So we see conservation permits for elk, for antelope, moose, mountain goat, mule deer. So it's become a very significant part of conservation funding across the board, are these auction tags. And, there is controversy with them. It's obviously they sell for quite a bit. A lot of folks can't afford to play at that level. And so there's heartburn there. People saying, well, you're not being very inclusive. And you'll hear people say, well, this is taking a draw tag out of the draw pool, which is not true. They add these tags over and above. And then some people will moan about, well, how about a raffle? Well, most states do offer raffle tags as well as an auction tag. And so anyway, we've been very successful with that. What all that means is the states and provinces that receive this money has been very successful. Arizona is an example. Just off of the permit sales since 1983, we've been able to raise and direct a little over $11 million back to the state. And for some states, maybe not so much Arizona now, but other states that are just getting their sheep programs going, like in North Dakota, Nebraska, South Dakota, that maybe only have enough sheep to allocate 1 or 2 permits. Well, there's definitely not enough money coming to finance, wild sheep restoration from a couple of tags. They're doing well with an auction tag. They can raise several $100,000 off of one tag. That buys a lot of radio collars. That buys a lot of helicopter time. That pays for, all of the management actions that go into, putting and keeping more sheep on the mountain. So back to Arizona, Arizona, their game commission decided, as you mentioned, that they were going to shift their focus away from auction tags and put all their eggs in one basket in raffle tags. And, it's certainly their call. And we auctioned off, at least for now, the last auction tag at this past sheep show for Arizona. And at the same time, they put out that we have this Rocky tag and asked people to apply to be the ones to raffle it off for them. I don't know for a fact how many folks did apply for that, but I don't think there was that many. We were one of the ones anyway, and they awarded that to us. I will tell you that it's a lot of work. Auctions are a whole lot easier to execute. You have everybody that's interested in one room, and those that can't be there can pipe in online. And, the auctioneer gets up there and hypes up the tag, and, we show pictures and videos, and people get all excited about raising money for wild sheep, and the bids go up and the gavel falls, and there you go. Raffles, a lot of moving parts there, a lot of marketing that goes on, digital, print, social media, an ongoing system of making sure that everybody that should be aware that this is available has been reached, building a website to execute all this from. So it's a lift. I expect that's why a lot of groups haven't put in for doing it. That's not why we weren't going to shy away from it. We're committed to the resources, and anything we can do to raise money, we'll do it. So there you have it. We're, deep into it. It runs through the end of this month. We did have to, have a sunset or a deadline. So June 30th at midnight Mountain Standard Time is the cutoff. And people can buy as many tags as they want or have the resources to do. And, it's fun to watch, people engaging in it. And, some people are, buy one tag, I'm in it. It's just like the old draw odds. Well, if you don't apply, you never will draw. Well, if you don't get one ticket, at least, you're not in it. So
go ahead. Well, I was going to say one of the things that, having spoken to you about this before, I know the foundation, 100% of the proceeds, and not net proceeds, it's gross proceeds, if I understand, go back to Arizona and the Wild Sheep Resource. And so that's pretty benevolent in my opinion, because obviously, there's somebody building these programs. There's the cost to market and everything. And I know I talked to you a little bit too about, there's significant costs in doing a proper job of marketing this. And then 100% of the proceeds are going back to Arizona. A lot of organizations couldn't even afford to do that, let alone would be willing to do it with the cost involved.
Yeah, that's a good point. Arizona is 100%. That's their law. That's their rule. Not all states have that. Some states allow a little bit for administrative fees. 5 to 10% is typically the range. But Arizona is the one state where if you have an auction tag or a raffle tag, every dollar goes back to them. And there is a cost associated with it. We're buying ads, a lot of staff time, a lot of administrative costs that are, pulling us away from other things. But like you said, we're not shy about, if it's raising money for the resource, we're all in. And we've been very blessed with, we've got some really good communication partners that have, helped spread the word, either through their social platforms or their email and distribution lists. We bought some media, but we've had a lot donated. And that's a testament to, the commitment of a lot of our industry partners that see this for what it is and realize that, we're kind of all in this together. So they've been very generous with their media assets. And then we also decided that along with this, if this is kind of the ultimate sheep tag to have, which it is, then we put together what we called an ultimate sheep hunters package that's being raffled alongside. It's a separate raffle, but it's all in the same website. So when you go to buy your tickets for the Bighorn tag, you can also throw a couple tickets into the sheep package. And that was all 100% fully donated product from our industry partners. That's current value is over like $22,000. And it's, optics, sleeping bags, tents, boots, everything that you'd take on a sheep hunt. And it's all kind of cherry picked, best of the best stuff. So that's been very cool. And that's been well received as well in terms of people buying a ticket or two for that.
Yeah, awesome. So, I hear this argument lots of times against the conservation permits, but of course, there's so much funding that's driven back to the state there. And we just had our chapter and affiliates, the Wild Sheep Foundation chapter and affiliates down in Fort Lauderdale here this past weekend. Utah was talking about the extra hunting opportunities in their state. And I think Arizona is another classic example that hunting opportunities gone from 40-ish tags 40 years ago to over 150 or something like that now. So, we see when the wild sheep resource is invested in, there's an ROI on that, and it benefits sportsmen and sportswomen that they get this opportunity. So, this really is a big part of our wild sheep economy. The conservation permits clearly, but even the raffles too. This is so important to putting and keeping wild sheep on the mountain. And without it, there's just, we look at 25,000 sheep in the 60s to 85,000 plus now. The foundation and other great organizations out there are making a difference for the resource, and it's creating new opportunities each and every day for hunters as well.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Kyle. I mean, it's not it's not something that's always top of mind for us because we're so focused on the resource and everything that we can do. But at the end of the day, we are increasing hunting opportunity. If there's more sheep, there's more available tags. That improves draw odds. That creates more raffle tags. That creates more auction tags, and it's a flowing system. If there's more opportunity, that translates to more revenue to the resource, which in turn translates to growing the resource. And you mentioned about some heartburn on the auction tags. Yeah, I get it. I mean, you see somebody that drops, $500,000 and you go, oh, this is just a rich guy sport. That's just going all to the rich guys, and the average guy can't play, and it's driving up the cost of hunting for everybody. No, not really. If some individual wants to drop that kind of money to put more sheep on the mountain, improve draw odds for everybody else, keep the cost of licenses and tags down, more power to them. They've got the money and want to, go crazy with it. I'd rather see them go crazy here than, something else that I'm personally not passionate about. And I think if people looked at it in that light, it might ease some of the anguish that people have over these auction tags.
Well, and I think for me too, that I see the numbers of British Columbia that we invest in, as there is a tag that's on a raffle. It's a special permit for British Columbia, and I think it's restricted to BC residents. And then there's the conservation permit, the raffle permit that's sold in Reno through the Wild Sheep Foundation, and that generates, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 times the amount that the raffle ever draws. So, in terms of just conservation funding, you're literally losing one tag and you're generating all this revenue. And we just wouldn't, and then that money is directed straight back to the resource. And it's very transparent, very clear. It's all done in British Columbia through the Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation. And I know other jurisdictions have similar mechanisms. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. So there's a lot of transparency, and it has to go back to the resource. And sort of my challenge to people when they start ragging on about the raffle or the auction permits is, well, what's your alternative? What's your alternative source of revenue? And you and I both know, Keith, that the raffle, so New Mexico this year, super controversial, but we drove $1.3 million back to the wild sheep resource in that state. Add that to Pittman Robertson, and where do you get? You literally $5+ million for the resource.
Yeah, it's a 3-to-1 match there. Yeah, I mean, if you're a student of the math, and by default we had to look into this, and we scoured all the historical data on raffles and auctions, and historically raffles bring in 30 to 50% of what an auction tag does.
That's a huge disparity.
Yeah. And, if not that, what? I mean, you brought that up. What is the alternative? Well, one alternative is raising the cost of resident, non-resident license fees to cover that. And if you are successful in a draw tag, whether it's elk, mule deer, pronghorn, or whatever, instead of it being a, somewhat of a reasonable fee, it could be, 10, 15 grand. You drew the tag. Now you're on the hook for this. Well, that's not going to float well with a lot of folks. So I obviously I look at it differently. But I do think that there is some culpability here in terms of educating people, how the money's spent. You mentioned the transparency. The state agencies are getting better about that, showing, okay, here's the money in and here's the money out and here's where it's gone and here's what it's done. Here's the result and how the money has been spent. And there was a time, honestly, where, that information wasn't available. It was just all this money's going somewhere and nobody knows where. So that's helping. And I'm starting to see that, that icy feel about auction tags starting to thaw once people see, okay, yeah, I'm getting it now. And hopefully that'll persist or continue on, so people do feel good about how conservation is funded, all the different mechanisms for it, and the result. There is not government funding for this. There's not we do have Pittman Robertson, a tax on sporting arms and ammunition in this country, which is a significant amount of money. But that gets spread out over, all sorts of agency actions. When it comes to tags, that is more specific to that species. And, people that are interested in elk, and feel like they want to, put something a little extra in the conservation envelope for elk, they can buy an elk raffle tag. They can buy an elk auction tag. So it's giving people opportunity to put some of their treasure into their passion as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just one, we kind of beat up the auction permit here and raffle. But the one thing that I think about too is that, you said, was it 30 to 50% of the
30 to 50% is kind of the range of what raffles tags historically have done, as opposed to that same tag in that same jurisdiction being auctioned. And I
yeah.
don't know if that'll ever really change that range. It might improve some here and there, but when we do this, and you'll see there's a disclaimer on the website, if you live in any one of these states, you are not eligible based on your state's online gaming laws.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that raffles are more fair and equitable to everyone is not completely the case. There are people that are excluded.
And there's also the case of the wealthy individual going out and buying $100,000 worth of raffle tickets and increasing their odds significantly as well.
Yeah, you had to throw that one in there, but that's a reality too.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like my raffle odds the way they are. But yeah, if somebody wanted to swoop in and buy a bunch of tickets, they certainly could, and that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as fair and equitable as it always seems on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, and this is only in regard to the pushback that people have with auctions, saying, well, the auction tags are being bought by the same handful of rich guys every year. And how is that fair? How is that equitable? Well, I don't know how you get around that.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that I think about often with this too, that I've seen this just back home here in BC, but if you have one individual that buys an auction permit for $500,000, and then using your formula, say the 50% formula, got $250,000, and you've got 2,000 people contributing $250,000. That's an additive, right? So if you've got that rich guy that took that $500,000 tag, you could still draw that $250,000 out of people on something else, another raffle perhaps. There's a whole bunch of other reasons. So if you're taking $250,000 out of the pockets of a guy like me that can't afford the $500,000, that's a $250,000, that's not going to get spent at your show. So it's, I feel like it's additive. So no matter how you look at it, it's just taking money off the table for wild sheep.
Yeah, and that's, at the end of the day, that's what we're all here for. Can we make it as fair and equitable for everybody, as best we can? Yes. I mean, that's one of the other driving forces between all of the sheep hunts that we give away. The Less Than One Club, that was birthed to give away sheep hunts for first time people that have never been on a sheep hunt. I think this last sheep show we gave away close to 20 sheep hunts between drawings and registration incentives and life member breakfasts, and we're all about putting as many sheep on the mountain as possible, but as also as many sheep hunters on the mountain as possible.
Yeah,
That's part of the wild sheep economy. Is sheep fever is real, and whether you're dreaming about going sheep hunting or we're fortunate enough to go on a sheep hunt, you want to go again. And so that keeps people, activated. That keeps people supporting the resource, supporting what's going on. And of course, they're buying chances and booking hunts and, doing what they can. So.
Yeah, well said. And so on that note, see, it's interesting. We talk about the permit situation versus raffle and how it's perceived to be unfair. It's only for the rich guy, and so there's that argument, and that's fair. And one thing that we've seen, we all know, there's organizations that have taken a stand on these auction permits. They've that's their trademark. That's what they stand for. Is they're actively soliciting against these auction permits. The one thing I'm going to say is that internally in the wild sheep community, I don't hear it as much. It's usually someone, certainly outside the Wild Sheep Foundation family, for sure. There's not too many Wild Sheep Foundation members that are the ones that are bitching about it. And I do find that interesting because we talk about equity and fair and opportunity. And yes, so we have this scenario where these exclusive permits are sold at a very high rate that the average guy will never be able to afford or show. That's fair. But then, that just twigged my brain on the less than one club. You show up to less than one club, like you said, that 1 year, 20 sheep hunts, and for a fraction of the price. So the less than one club, it's relatively inexpensive to get into. And then what do we give away? 3 North American wild sheep hunts, and then 3 overseas international hunts as well. All for the cost of basically getting in the door, and you get free beer out of the deal. Like, you're going to drink your weight in beer before you even get started, and you could win 6 hunts while you're at it. That's a pretty cool opportunity. So for anyone that thinks that within our community you're not getting anything back, there's just different things for different people at different times.
Sure. Well, and we've been at this for a long time, not to date you or myself, but I've watched an increase in, just squabbling over the resource, and it's just self-inflicted wounds, fighting amongst ourselves over tags and allocations and who's getting what, and I'm not getting mine. And it's really, unfortunately, breeding, angry sportsmen. I mean, and it just seems to be pointless. And the list just keeps going on. You've got people that are angry about corner crossing, angry about crossbows, angry about too many tags, angry about not enough tags, longer seasons, shorter seasons. It just kind of dilutes the whole spirit of the hunt and hunting heritage when you got all this noise. That's just, it's a detractor, and it really, you don't end up anywhere. You just end up in a big circle.
Mm-hmm.
So just something I noticed, and certainly social media is not, I think it's aiding and abetting a lot of that.
Yeah. I well said. And I think too, and I think this is where the Wild Sheep Foundation's a little bit culpable, is that we've created this really engaged community that loves to hunt sheep and, respects and reveres sheep and wants to be out there. So, there's probably a little bit of increased pressure because of some of the great work that's being done. It's the unintended consequences of creating this amazing community of people that are engaged and want to help the resource. But by the same token, you've created more interest in it. And I've heard people criticize that. And my argument to that is, well, look at some of the brands out there. Look at all the noise. Like, you can't start pointing fingers at the foundation or our chapter and affiliates exclusively, because it's not just that, on top of just the growth in hunting in general, right?
Well, and the other thing, and not to keep beating up on auction tags, and this was before I even was, working for the foundation and just going to the sheep show and wearing a different hat. It amazed me to sit there at an auction like this and watch people standing up and cheering for these bids on these tags going up. And when the gavel falls and people, screaming and cheering, knowing that this money is going to a resource. They weren't in it at all. These people aren't bidding. They're just cheering it on. And that really struck me as a unique scenario where people are celebrating somebody else's good fortune, knowing that it went to a good cause that they care about. That's cool. You don't see that everywhere, where, the good for that guy, where that does live. And when you see the reports, whether it comes out on social media or, somebody saying, oh, then, the New Mexico tag just won for 1.1 million. And there's no context there as to the excitement that went on in that room when that tag went. And all it is reduced to a big number that's, disturbing. It's kind of lost in translation, if you will. Had some of these folks been in the room and been a part of that vibe and went, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten that from my wife, who's, she's not in the industry at all, but obviously is connected through me. And she was looking at me going, look at all these people going crazy for somebody spending money that they don't have.
Yeah. Yeah. Super cool. Yeah. The energy is just something. It's next level in that room. And watching New Mexico and the energy and excitement around that was pretty thrilling, and the highest permit ever in the history of, I guess, auction permits or conservation permits. So,
well, and then you see the folks from New Mexico with the Game and Fish Department, knowing what that money is going to do for them, for their program, the things that they want to accomplish, the things that they know they need to get done, the places that they can put more sheep now, and their level of enthusiasm and excitement for it. It's like their baby. It's like walking your daughter down the aisle. So to see that level of excitement too from them, the boots on the ground people that are going to be the beneficiaries of that money. There's so many positives to this, and unfortunately the negative side is the one that gets batted around the most. And I think it's another reason why we raised our hand to tackle this raffle tag. Is we wanted to do everything we could to provide as much funding, and hopefully we'll break a record with this tag. We've got a couple weeks left for it being open, and just kind of prove out that the sheep community is there to support the resource as best they can in any way that they can. And a lot of people volunteer their time. They don't have the money to throw at it, but volunteering for projects. We're right in the middle of our grant and aid season in terms of the money that we allocate to agencies for grant and aid projects. No shortage of volunteers wanting to be involved in guzzler projects and habitat improvements and captures and radio collarings and stuff like that. So that's providing time, not treasure. And we pride ourselves in trying to make sure that those opportunities exist as well. Everybody that wants to get involved and give back to the resource, there's a pathway to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Maybe let's just switch it up a little bit here and talk about, so you mentioned the grant and aid cycle. We touched a little bit on that, and then summer events. If anyone wants to come and check out what's going on with the foundation, do they come by headquarters? When's a good time to come by? What's going on for the summer?
Sure. Well, I'll do grant and aid first. So grant and aid is a big part of our mission funding program. This is money that we raised, through the sheep show and other things like raffles and donations and things like that. And we turn around and give that money back out in grants. We rely heavily on our chapter affiliate network to come forward with projects that they see in their areas that, are areas of greatest need. They're working with their state and provincial agencies. There's a submission process. That's going to be opening up here in July. It's about a 30-day thing where we receive all of the applications, and then we have our conservation staff and our professional resource advisory board go through all of those applications, and they decide which ones are ones that we want to fund. And then that package is presented to the board, as you know, and the board looks at that and they approve and move things around the chessboard a little bit. Then we come out with, here's our list of projects that we'll be funding for the next fiscal year. So that's always an exciting time because we know where there's work to be done. We know where there's improvements that can be made. And when we see these applications come in specifically for those things, our members are funding this. This is where the money comes from. So being able to, back to the transparency word, showing that this is what we're investing your money in, and here's the result. So we're winding down with the current fiscal year's grant and aid stuff, and like I said, opening up applications here in July for the going forward fiscal year. So that's cool. That's the actual work on the ground. And if people are following us on social, you'll see a lot of these projects that we funded this year that are happening, have happened, the results of it. New lambs born this spring for a translocation, more collars put on, habitat work, disease research, all of that sort of stuff is getting funded. And then,
Just before we jump off that, I think too, the thing that blows me away is the significant investment. So there's all the permit stuff and all the, conservation permits that it has been driven back to the state, provincial, tribal agencies. But the grant and aid program is it's additive, and it's 7 figures. We're not talking chump change. It's not, $50,000 a year for projects. The GIA budget last year was right around that $1.5 million range, certainly well over $1 million. So it's a significant amount of investment over and above all the already great work that's being done through all the other fundraising that's been done too.
Sure. Well, we mentioned, Arizona being on an auction tag or a raffle tag, 100% going back. Some states allow us some administrative fees. Well, what do we do with that 5 or 10%? We fund grant and aid with it. So it's going back to the resource anyway, one way or another. I mean, we're just a facilitator. We raise money and we give it away. That's what a nonprofit conservation organization does.
That's awesome. Inspiring.
Yeah. And, summer wise, as we're coming up on an hour, we're a pretty busy outfit. Sheep show is almost a 12-month a year planning thing. But we do take a break here. We've got our Ram Rendezvous, which is a street festival thing that we host with our partner Schnee in downtown Bozeman. That's coming up on July 11th. And that's for, anybody that's, in town, coming to Bozeman, going to Yellowstone, family vacation, whatever. And even if there's not an event, our world headquarters is here in Bozeman. We get a fair amount of our members stopping by and just curious people to, see who we are and what we do. And we're, open 7 days, or not 7 days a week, 5 days a week, 8 to 5. So somebody's here and happy to give you a tour. Ram Rendezvous is just kind of a, live music, free barbecue, free beer, street festival. It's gotten bigger and bigger every year. So that's kind of a fun thing that we do. This Friday, we're doing a deal with our friends over at Mountain Tough. They're having a Tough Fest thing, which is they're doing a mountain ruck in the morning, and then a big, physical fitness workout deal at their facility in their parking lot in the afternoon. And then they're doing, live music, barbecue, vendor booths in the afternoon. So we're going to have a booth in there. Come see us there at Mountain Tough. That's in Bozeman as well. And, our folks down there, we've got staff down in Reno. They get around with our smoker and do various events, rodeos, ball games, volunteer appreciation days, and things like that. We'd love to be able to do more of those, little events here and there. Just, don't have the bandwidth.
Yeah, awesome. Are you going to be in Ram Rendezvous, Keith?
Oh yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
I've been dying to go. What are your dates on that? Do you have those handy?
Yeah, it's July 11th. So
awesome.
That's a Friday, and it's from 3 to 8 o'clock in the afternoon on the streets of downtown Bozeman. We block off one of the side streets there, right next to the Schnee's store. And, have at it. Raffles, free beer, live music, barbecue.
Free beer?
Free beer.
Yeah.
We get a lot of, Bozeman tourist folks. They go, what's this? And they go, Wild Sheep Foundation, never heard of it. What do you do? And so it's kind of cool outreach. Obviously, we have our local faithful that we see every year, local members, people from within the state. And we still have people come from Idaho and Wyoming and neighboring states. But to engage with, families that are going to Yellowstone and getting them kind of indoctrinated to wild sheep and the Wild Sheep Foundation, it gives us an opportunity to spread the good word to people that we ordinarily wouldn't touch. So that's kind of a cool part of why we host it in downtown Bozeman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. Great. Okay, so one last thing I want to talk about is let's talk about this membership drive. You and I have been working on this together, and let's do our best pitch for someone to join the foundation. We need more membership. So yeah, let's talk about
we got that going on too. So the cool part about, and this for the first, we're giving away a 2025 Polaris Ranger side-by-side that's valued at $22,000. So any new member that joins, it's $45 for an annual membership. You automatically have got a ping pong ball in the drawing. Any of our members that renew, same thing. And then there's, opportunities to buy extra chances if you want. If you join as a 3-year member, you get 3 chances. If you upgrade to a life membership, I think you get 10. A Summit Life member, you get 20 chances. We will have the side-by-side in person at this event this Friday at Mountain Tough, and we'll also have the side-by-side in person at the Ram Rendezvous. And it's I'm not a big side-by-side guy, but this is an impressive unit. It's pretty cool. And we had it wrapped in a special decal WSF, kind of a mountain topography wrap. People can see it. There's pictures of it up on our website. We've got a social reel that's circulating around there where we shot some video with it in action. It's pretty cool. And that'll run through, that sunsets on July 15th. So Raffle the Arizona tag, that sunsets at the end of this month, June 30th. The membership drive for the side-by-side extends into July 15th. So So for a $45 membership, you're in the running for a $22,000 Polaris.
And you get an amazing membership to a great organization that's putting wild sheep and keeping wild sheep on the mountains. So to me, that's a no frickin' brainer. Anyone that's not a member has got to sign up to the Wild Sheep Foundation. And if you're signed up, sign up a family member or your best buddy. Let's keep the energy going.
Yeah, or just renew your membership. Any renewals, any new members or renewals of existing members put you in the game.
And I think we have an algorithm too that if you buy a higher level of membership, you buy life for Summit Life, you get more chances to win as well. So
Yep.
more you spend, the more, and it's pretty significant. It's not just a couple extra chances. I don't remember the recall, but I think a life member is an extra 10 or Summit's 20 or something like that, extra chances, I believe. So pretty significant chances to win if you decide to spend a bit more money. So.
Yeah, if you're a life member, you get 10 chances. Going from life to Summit Life, you get 25 chances.
There you go.
And then extra chances are $50 each, 6 for $250, 15 for $500.
Awesome. Yeah. So great program, great organization. Huge shout out to all our listeners to get on it and get your tickets in. Only got just over a month to get signed up and be part of it. So
on that one, yep, and a little over 2 weeks on the Arizona raffle tag. So if you had tag soup this year in the draws, here's a chance for, arguably one of the premier sheep tags there is, the Arizona tag. If when those auction tags are selling for $500,000, it's the same tag.
Yeah,
for a $50 chance.
Well, and I'm looking at it too here on the website, Keith, and I'm seeing that it's for this fall. It's August 15th, so literally you're going hunting in just over two months from now, and it runs for the entire year. So this is one of these special permits or these special tags. They've got these special conditions. So I think it runs for almost a full year till August 14th of 2026. So tons of opportunity to go and get yourself a world-class Rocky as well.
Yeah, this is the 2025-26 tag. So yeah, the season dates for the winter is August 15th of this year through August 14th of next year. So you've got a long runway to scout, figure out where you want to go, maybe get your eyes on a couple of rams that you'd like to hang your tag on.
Out of curiosity, what's kind of the quality of rams that are coming out of the Rockies? Like, are you seeing any of that stuff? I have no idea what the quality. They're obviously big sheep, but I'm just curious on if you have any idea on the quality, Keith.
Yeah, I would say for Rockies, I might get shot here, but if you have this tag and you didn't at least connect with a 180 plus inch ram, you mucked up. And there's good rams down there. And with that kind of runway, in terms of time, it's not like, well, you got a week and that's it. Should be able to carve out a career ram out of that with that tag. Mm-hmm. And we've got some pictures of past rams that were taken in the state. Are there 200-inch rams down there? Probably so. I don't think, just like anywhere else, they're not around every tree. But I would rank the quality of Arizona rams, if you pay attention to, Boone and Crockett records, it's up there.
Awesome. And what I'm seeing too is there's a whole bunch of units. So it's not, it's just, you're not restricted to one area. So you got a bunch of units that you can select your hunting area from, and you've got that full year pretty much to take
you're
something.
Valid in from what I'm told, the best units there are, and there's a whole long list of them on the website.
Awesome. Okay, so one thing I'm noting is that Canadian residents can buy these tags. So don't think, this is, it's out of our jurisdiction, I can't get it. No, you can. So make sure you get your tags as a Canadian, because I know we have lots of Canadian listeners here. And then where do they go? What's the best place that people want to go to get these tags or these chances to win a raffle ticket?
Best thing to do is go directly to the Wild Sheep Foundation website, which is wildsheepfoundation.org. And you'll run right into a link that'll take you right to the Arizona tag execution site where you can buy your tags or buy your chances.
Awesome. Great. So great opportunity there. We've got the, what do you call it? The Ultimate Sheep Hunter raffle package?
Ultimate Sheep Package, yeah. Once you land on that website, you'll see a tab that says, gear package, and you can peruse that list as well. And then you can add tickets to your cart for both of them. And pretty simple, pretty intuitive website.
And I think for our non-members, there's an opportunity to pick up a Wild Sheep Foundation membership there as well. So click on that and get yourself a membership. It's really important to support this organization that's looking after the wild sheep that you want to go and chase. So, Keith, amazing. Love all you do. Love the great raffle. This is a great package. Really exciting. I love what you guys have put together. Hopefully we'll raise some really solid funds for wild sheep conservation. And I guess for our listeners, they should be coming down to Sheep Show in January and experiencing the Mecca to Reno and all things wild sheep. And they get to even meet you, because I know you're always on the floor working your butt off down there.
I'm around. That's for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything we missed? Anything we need to circle back on?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. I appreciate the time. I appreciate your listeners, certainly, and appreciate all you do, Kyle. I know that this is not a side hustle for you. You're working on the foundation business a lot daily, I'm sure. So it takes a village thing.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we're like you said, I think you used the words earlier, we're so blessed with the community that we have. There's just so many people that are super passionate, whether it's our members or our directors, certainly our staff and our supporters, donors. It's a pretty special group of people doing some really important work, and day in and day out, there's wild sheep conservation happening on the ground, and this is ground zero right here at Wild Sheep Foundation. So thank you, sir.
You bet. Thank you, Kyle.